What's up guys, BrunsNick's back, and today let's talk about arsenals using Brunswick bowling balls. I have the Brunswick Infinity, the new Quantum Evo Response, and of course the Teal Rhino Pro Vintage. Three completely different bowling balls with different characteristics. I can't wait to get them on the lanes and show you what they can do. I have SPECTO running, so we'll look at some of the data, but before we get to all that, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Now, let's see this Brunswick arsenal in action. All right, it's time to talk about Brunswick arsenal. I made a 3-ball arsenal with the Rhino Pro, Quantum Evo Response, and the Infinity. 3 completely bowling balls. We're gonna show them at different parts of the lane. We're gonna look at some of the SPECTO data, but we're basically gonna talk about how to build an arsenal and what to look for, and maybe how to fine-tune things as you go. I'm bowling on a brand new pattern, test heavy. I always bowl on test medium, but I've gotten some requests to see maybe a little bit more oil so we could see some separation between these balls. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna start it out with Brunswick Infinity. We're gonna start it kind of in the track area, and we're gonna throw a couple of shots with each ball here and there, and we're just gonna talk about it. So let's just get into it. All right. Test heavy, a little more oil. So Infinity, very benchmark type ball. Very smooth, easy, predictable, and is just dominating from an angle that's like straight, right? So if I'm looking to break down a pattern, control a pattern, you're gonna want a bowling ball that's like the Infinity. It's an asymmetric ball, flares quite a lot, as you can see from there. So flare is good for control and hook. If a ball doesn't flare, it's not gonna be able to hook as much as a ball that doesn't flare. So let's change out of that. So we saw what Infinity does. What happens when we use a very flippy ball like Quantum Evo Response with HK22 Pearl and a high intermediate asymmetric core, kind of in that same spot. You know, using a shiny ball on a heavier condition, let's see what we see. Not a lot of surprise there. You know, when you're bowling on heavy oil, the shiny pearl balls, the skid flip balls, they don't really come into play unless you build in some friction later in the block or you hit them with surface early on. I'm not gonna hit this ball with surface right now, but I just wanna show you the difference between a ball that has surface and a roll built into that versus a ball that's just all out flip for length and back end. So what happens when I use Rhino Pro in that same area in the track? It should be able to control it, maybe just a little bit less overall because this is a thick shell with an 030s diff, much different than Infinity. But it does have a solid cover, although not super dull. We'll see. So once again, very different reaction there. The ball didn't set up and read. The ball didn't hook. So what do? We gotta move it further right to start, because we can't open our angles right now unless we lose the ball speed. Even though this ball flares plenty, how would I adjust with Rhino Pro to get that ball back through the pins to the pocket and striking more? So based on that first shot in that same zone, it doesn't hook as much as Infinity. So we have to get it out further right, closer to the friction. So I'm gonna move it closer to the friction. Old school ball. We're gonna try play this a little bit straighter, maybe closer between first and second arrow. Ha! Mix them up. So with the amount of oil we have in the lanes, starting out, I'm probably not going to start with Rhino Pro unless I hit it with some surface, which I think I'm going to right now. So I'm just going to hit it with a fresh 2000 pad just to liven it up a little bit. This ball does have a little bit of use on it. I did the review on it. But mostly this is just going to get that duller finish back on the ball. And I'm going to stay in that same zone and see if there's any difference, if it's usable. All right. Obviously that last hit was struck, but it wasn't very convincing. Ooh. All right, so even with a little bit of surface there, this is not a ball I'm going to start with. It's going to be infinity, but let's try the Quantum Evo from out there and see what kind of trouble we can get in playing a skid flip ball on heavier fresh oil from out. What's the worst that can happen, right? Never know. Let's do it. Yeah, kind of the same hit. So right now, everything's telling me I need more surface to start. I need that ball to slow down better because right now my cleaner, more flippy balls and my lower flaring balls aren't quite enough to pick up the pattern, slow down, and hook, because the ball has to slow down in order to hook. Bottom line. So what are we going to do? We got to start with infinity. So let's go back to infinity. I'm going to play it kind of in the same zone there that I just was with Rhino and Quantum Evo response. So playing it out there between first and second. Much more direct line. Grabbed it. But it don't matter. I can just grind on that ball, hit it as hard as I want. I can miss in a little bit, which that one probably did. And the ball is much easier to control from out there. So, you know, when you're building your arsenal, you always want to build around the ball that's going to give you the most control. And then you typically want one that's radically different one way and radically different the other way. And that's how you build an arsenal. You got 1, 2, 3 to go from. So eventually, and I'm not going to throw enough shots to see it really, but eventually this lane is going to break down and this ball is going to become a little bit lazy on the back end. It's going to happen. Now I could either move left and start chasing oil, or I can get into the other bowling balls once the friction has been developed on the lane. It's out a little bit wider, but look at that. How much better that ball reads. Has a little bit more surface on it. So if I stay in that same zone, and I got people on my team that are staying in that zone with me and breaking them down, the breakdown is going to come and I'm going to be able to get into the other balls fairly soon. So from there, you know, based on what I'm seeing, Rhino Pro could be an option with just a touch more surface. So last time we added 2,000 grit, so now we're going to go with 1,500. Just a little more grit. I need this ball to slow down a little bit more. This ball does flare, but not nearly as much. Now I'm just doing this very light. I'm not doing a real heavy 1,500. So I don't want this to be a super charcoal ball where it kind of puts me out of play for later. But the main thing is when we have heavier oil, we need to start breaking them down and start building friction so that we can move in and start banking off of it later. All right, now I got the 1,500 grit on here. Let's throw Rhino Pro. Oh, I got it out wide. But look, wasn't my best shot. Kind of lost it a little bit off my hand, but that ball slowed down and changed direction a lot harder. So now I have options, right? I could either go infinity with the stronger core, stronger cover, or I can go something duller that doesn't flare maybe as much and try to stay on top of it longer. So that's gonna be the two ideas there. It's gonna be staying straighter, but figuring out which motion I like so far. Now I'm gonna try to keep this more in the oil and see what it does. All right, right, so that one read a little bit early for my eyes. So that one started up sooner for me. I thought I would carry down a little bit more, maybe hold the pocket, shim it is what they call it, but I didn't see a whole lot of shim on that shot. So I would probably test moving in just a little bit, maybe like a small 2-and-1 and playing that same zone. So that's what we'll try. Because eventually I don't want to get right on top of the gutter, but I need to start building a spot around 5 board and burning it in. That looks pretty good. Now as we develop this pattern more and more, we're going to be able to get into quantum evo response, and that's going to be where we finish a block if we bowl enough games, or if there's enough people on the pair on a short, like a league night or something like that, you'll be able to get into ball like quantum evo. Now this is all for me, right? So this can be completely different for where you bowl on. Right now we're bowling on a pretty heavy oil condition. Compared to what I've shown in my past videos, this is a lot heavier. I'm playing a lot straighter, and I'm a little more comfortable out there. So what happens now if I try to use a shiny ball where the pattern's starting to develop a little bit, it's quite not there yet, but if I move in, say if I make a 3-and-2 adjustment left, what happens? Is there enough on this ball to get it back through the pins yet? The answer is almost. It's almost there. Now, if there's more people on the pair, this pattern's going to break down a lot quicker. And by game 2 or so, you'll be able to switch into these balls that have a lot more response. That one hooked, but I wasn't sure, and the ball definitely came in behind the head pin. Now, getting ahead of the move is important as well. So when you're making your transition, getting ahead of the crowd, right? So let's try one more shot there. There's plenty of oil, so I'm not worried about this going to the face. I'm going to slow it down some. That's another advantage of balls that are inherently skid flip, is moving it in and giving yourself some friction to the outside to bank off of, and a lot of oil in the middle to hold the pocket. So if you have that, then your scores can go up even more, because now I got miss room right. Let's try to miss one right, and we'll close out this video. So I typically, unless I'm bowling in something very specific, I'm not doling my pearls too much. If I'm bowling on a heavier pattern, or if I need to throw it harder, then yeah, it might need some surface. But for a ball like this, yeah, I'm gonna leave it shiny, let it do its thing later. Oh, that's way in. All right, that's fine. If I got that look, the rest of the field is in trouble. That's the other thing people don't take into account, is like what you're bowling on. If you're bowling on like a house pattern tournament and everybody's shooting 240 and you're grinding out 2-0, do something different. Don't even think about it. It's not you. You're not, oh, maybe I'm just throwing it bad. No, you're in the wrong ball. Now, granted, there might be a certain time where you're like, okay, I really threw that bad, but if you find yourself struggling to throw doubles while everybody's stringing 6-baggers, change. All right, that's out wider. All right, so the pattern has developed quite a bit, just since we started here. But that's my 3-ball arsenal, using all Brunswick balls with the Quantum Evo Response, Rhino Pro Teal, and the Infinity. What's your 3-ball arsenal you're gonna build using only Brunswick balls, past or present, anytime you want? What's gonna be your 3? And tell me a little bit about why you picked those 3 in the comments below. Till then, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Talk to you guys soon.